My new friend, Angela McCuiston, is not an ordinary person, which makes her so special in my eyes. And if you do not know her, soon to be in your eyes and your ears. She is qualified as a personal trainer, a corrective exercise specialist, which we're going to talk about, a cancer exercise specialist, owns her own business called Music Strong, maintains several training locations in Nashville, travels to give workshops, is a special consultant for the Old Guard Army Fife and Drums Corps, published her first book, The Musician's Essential Exercises, and has her master's in music and flute performance, is an accredited piccoloist, I believe, which won the 2007 NFA Piccolo Master Class, and has recently completed her 4th Century Ride 100 plus miles, and all of this without being wanted in at least over 20 states. We are,
that I know of.
We are here to find out what motivates this young lady, lovely lady, and how exercise has branded her musical aspirations to pursue these 3, I would say, themes in your life, Angela: perform, teach, and train. So let's go back to childhood, because I find many of these themes start there. Let's just start where you were born, and let's talk about your early upbringing as a child.
So I was born in a teeny little town in Michigan called Grand Ledge, which for some reason, almost everybody I talk to is like, oh yeah, I know where that is. Why? There's like 5 people who live there. Okay, maybe like 6,000, but still, it's tiny. So it's right outside of Lansing. If you're a Michigander, either way, it's right here. You see my hand. So, so I was born there. That's where my entire family still lives. My parents met in marching band in high school, which is funny because they're not musicians. I mean, they were high school musicians. My dad played trumpet. My mom played flute. Hence why I play flute, because I found it and went, oh, it's so pretty, I want to play it. And so I did. And it was just like a match made in heaven, that I made a sound first day. And yeah, when I was 10, my dad worked for Oldsmobile. My mom was my librarian. And my element, she has her degree in library science. And she was our elementary school librarian, which was way fun. You know, it's like, we're going to go down the hall to see my mom, you know, it was way fun, right? So when I was 10, my dad actually got laid off from Oldsmobile just one too many times. And we thought, all right, they weren't really seeing a future for us in Michigan. And they thought, there's way more of a future for us down south. GM was opening a new plant called Saturn. If we remember those beautiful little plastic cars everybody had for a while. My dad built Saturn cars. So we moved to the South, and it was a massive culture shock at 10 years old. We moved in July, which was the worst time of the year to move. It was a great experience. So yeah, so I moved from there when I was 10. I was about 4th grade. Yeah, that's kind of how I started. My dad worked for GM for 30 years. My mom, this is kind of interesting. My mom went from being a librarian to, when we moved to the South, she wasn't our librarian. She did a couple of different things. I don't remember exactly what she did in the beginning, but my mom is also an entrepreneur, and she has always loved quilting. And she decided, I'm not going to be a librarian anymore. I'm going to make a career out of something different. My mom now has a career as an optical illusion quilter. She's published over 9 books. She travels the world teaching people this. She's got her own fabric line. Her name is Karen Combs. If you're a quilter, you will know her name. She's this tiny little 4'10" woman. She's like a celebrity in the quilting world, and I think it's hilarious. And I watched her from a young age be an entrepreneur. We went to the Nashville flea market, and she had a booth as a quilter. I don't even know how that works, but I mean, like, she did all these things. I saw her try at these different places and fail, and try here and fail, and try here and fail, until like things just worked and worked and worked. And then when I got to high school, college-ish, my dad quit. He didn't want to say retired. He quit GM after 30 years. And he founded his own business as a computer guy. I don't really know what he does. He taught himself a new like C+ or C++ computer language. I don't understand any of it. He was a mechanic for a while. He like drag raced and did motorcycles and engine repair and stuff. And then he's like, I don't want to build cars anymore. I want to do computer stuff. So that's what he does. So I come kind of from a family of entrepreneurs.
Now, our audience is going to be honing in on these things because, you know, children absorb things. Mimicry is a huge, I mean, it's our natural tendency. We're children. You're 10 years old now. You've obviously had to adapt. You've learned adaptability by geography. You've watched your parents adapt to different provocations, avocations, interests, hobbies. Your father has a scientific mind. Your mother has her own sense of curiosity and development and self-development. You said you discovered flute from your mom. How did your mom continue to be a mentor as she did in terms of flute performance? And what was the beginning training you had, if you had personal private training as a 10-year-old, right around this time frame?
I was always really keenly aware that my mom was a musician. My grandmother played piano. That was always kind of a thing. And she was also an artist. She was an amazing artist. I begged her to teach me how to paint. And she did, bless her heart, but I'm terrible at it. I have no eye at all. So, but she did. I appreciate her humoring me. And her mom, my great-grandmother, I knew all 6 of my great-grandparents. Everybody lives really long in my life, and they all got married young, so I knew all 6. And 6 out of 8. And my great-grandmother, Grandma Dora, was also maybe like a 5-foot-tall woman who played not only piano, was really talented. I remember her playing when I was a kid. She also played accordion, which that thing is huge, right? So I can trace this musical gene through my mom. My dad played cornet. He didn't play trumpet. He played cornet back in the day. When I was a kid, they started giving me piano lessons, and I just took to it like a duck to water.
So you're self-educated. Your parents also are kind of self-educated as well. Did you pick that up from them?
Education was always a huge thing in our family.
Yeah.
It was really widely revered that you should read. You should always be learning something from somebody about something you didn't know. And that just came from all areas of especially on my mom's side. It was just like, always be learning. Weird little memory. I remember reading a book. Sarah, do you remember the book Sarah Plain and Tall?
No.
Oh, this is like a book you're all supposed to read in 4th grade or something. I remember reading it, and there was a word I didn't know. It was squall. I didn't know what a squall was. And I asked my mom, she goes, why don't you call your grandfather? I went, okay. But like, forget a dictionary. There was no Google. So I had to call my grandfather and ask him and he gave me the dictionary definition. I'm like, well, this is cool. I don't know why that stuck out to me. He was like, who does that? Call your grandfather. He's a learned man. He will tell you the things. Yeah. And so it helped me know that my grandparents were a resource like that.
Very cool.
It was just valued.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we're approaching, let's just say, college right now, and your choice of college, and you've made your decision. You're going to major in flute performance, I presume. What college, and what made you choose that college?
So I went to Tennessee Tech University here in Tennessee. It was in Cookeville, and I decided to go there because it was really between either there or Belmont. And Belmont here in Nashville is more centered towards vocalists, and I remember going to I checked them out and I was like, hey, so what, your campus is beautiful, but what about the band? They're like, I think we have a band. Choice made. So that point, I didn't even tell you like the whole story of like finding the flute. My mom had a flute under the stairs, and I would like take it out and open it and see it's in its shiny, in its shiny purple velvet, and just go, I will play this one day, and it was just like that match made in heaven. And since then I was that kid. So when it came time for college, there was no question I was majoring in music. I was the band for a while because I transferred from public school to private school. And I didn't really want to, but my parents wanted me to, and they asked me if I went, well, I'll try it. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Did not fit in.
Why is that? May I ask?
I wasn't popular, but I wasn't unpopular. Like I had plenty of friends. I fit in. I felt. And band wasn't a weird thing at the public school where I was. I went 2 minutes down the road to this private school. There was no band. I was a nerd, quote unquote. All these kids had been together since kindergarten. I was the outsider.
Now, most young people, young women especially, that I've talked to, with you find the flute, very attractive. It's metallic, it's shiny, it's lovely, all that. And when they go to college, they generally make a choice. The choice is motivated by the teacher, but you've made the choice because it had a band program, right?
It did. And I also looked around. I mean, I looked all over. I thought about Pepperdine. I thought about Indiana. I thought about all these other places. And I thought I'd rather stay close to home for my bachelor's degree. And I looked at what was close to home. And there are several other music schools, but they were known for things other than performance. Like MTSU, Middle Tennessee State, was known for business, music business, which wasn't even a thing back then, but that's what they were known for. And I was like, I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be recording. I don't care. And then, APSU was known for this, that, and the other. And I was like, this is perfect. And I went and I interviewed and I loved the place. And so I picked that place. Plus I really got along well with the teacher. And it just went, oh, this is perfect. And I really hit on a gold mine, because that year, those few years that I was there was some of the best years that, as I've heard from other teachers who have now retired, some of the best years that I were there were some of the best years they've had with the students that were there. It's just like an anomaly.
So now master's degree, you're fine tuning your skills in flute, but during the undergraduate years, I assume you were associated with sports at all? Where did the fitness kick in?
This is kind of funny. So the fitness kicked in probably my freshman year. There was some random guy I met who said, "Oh, we've got to get fit." And I was like, "You're a new friend. And you'll pick me up in your car. You live off campus." Okay. So he picked me up in his car and would drive me to the gym, but like 3 days a week. And we would go to the gym and work out. And I remember getting involved in fitness magazines. And my grandfather was a colonel in the Army. He was a National Guard. He was like the camp commander of Camp Grayling, if you know what that is. He and my uncle, it's like they were really steeped into fitness. And so that had already kind of been drilled into me a little bit. And I was interested. And so this guy picked me up and I started getting into it and went, "Oh, this is fun. I like how I feel." I had no idea what I was doing, but I started to make it a habit. And then I started reading fitness magazines and seeing what you could do to change your body and how that worked. And that's how it started, was in graduate school, or I'm sorry, in undergraduate. I just made a habit of it. I started going every morning.
Fantastic. So let's talk about MFA. I'm not remembering exactly what school you went to, but let's talk about that. What made you choose the school you went to?
So when I graduated, I joined the Army my senior year of college for my bachelor's degree. But I joined because I knew, oh, well, what am I going to do? I'm a patriot. I love to play my flute for my country. What better? And I'll get in crazy good shape and they'll pay me to do it. I'm young. I can do this. So, I thought that would be a great part-time job. I came back from basic and I had not gotten into the schools for graduate school that I wanted to get into. I applied. I desperately wanted to go to UCLA. I wanted to be in movie music so bad I could taste it. I had the best audition of my life and had to look up my rejection letter on the internet. But okay, so I'm not supposed to do this. So I got in I got in a couple places and I decided I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to teach. I'm going to learn how to self-support myself. So I did. I taught and I reapplied. And I got in at Indiana and I got in at Appalachian State. And Appalachian State offered me like basically a lot of money. And Indiana was like, "We'll give you this tiny little scholarship and you'll be a lot in debt, but you should come here." And I went, I'm going to go where I'm not going to be in debt. So I went to Appalachian State. This is 2 years after I graduated. And I hate to say it, but I hated it. It was not a good fit. So this is where I was chasing the non-debt-free life and thought this is where I'm going to, and then I realized I thought I wanted to be an ethnomusicologist. I loved Irish music. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I realized ethnomusicology was not playing music, it was studying it. So that went out the window. And what's funny is I had auditioned at Florida State. And I got this feeling like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. This is where I need to be. And I had an amazing audition. And the professor there, Ava Amsler, she's just retired this year. She said, she's Swiss. She says, "Angela, you should stay here and talk to me after." I was like, okay. Even though I had like a 10-hour drive, I'm like, yes, okay. And she goes, "I want you here, but you're not ready. Come back next year and audition." So then I went to Appalachian State and it made me who I needed to be. It really kind of solidified, this is what I want. This is who I need to be. I'm not being challenged. This is blah, 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 blah. I went and auditioned. She goes, "Now you are ready and I will offer you a TA." So I was a TA. So I had a teaching assistantship, and between that and the GI Bill and the Army, I had my master's degree paid for. But it's funny because I had that feeling the year before. I was like, I need to be here. And then I got rejected. And then the next year, it's like, poof, there it fell into place. But you had to go through that growing period beforehand.
I almost want to call this the rite of passage, because somewhere along the line of your personal development, you have been able to accrue into your credentials, your mental credentials, adaptability, perseverance, accepting challenges, actually enjoying challenges. The training, the physical fitness training started in early college, and then, somehow is connected to basic boot camp. You so flippantly said, "I came back from basic." I didn't ask you how well you did in basic. I mean, was basic easy for you with the training you were going through in college? But you seem to aspire to challenges to motivate your adequate self-esteem. Are these credentials, were they benefited or inherited from mom and dad, or is this self-induced? But what drives you? Where does that come from?
Excellent question. I think it's a little of both, honestly. I mean, we talk nature versus nurture here. I mean, it's honestly a little bit of both. Like, I went to Interlochen Arts Camp as a high schooler. I got in, and I knew there's no way my family could have afforded for me to go. But I was like, oh, there's no way. I actually got in. Me, out of all these people in the world, I got in. I've got to go, right? And so I was like, my parents were like, well, you've got to raise the money. I went, okay. And so I came up with some scheme. Like, I was trying to raise my money, and my grandparents actually went, okay, we see her effort. We're going to fund it for her to go. Didn't hurt that they lived 30 minutes down the road for their summer house, right? But so it was the best of both worlds. But I mean, like, it was that whole thing of, on my mom's side, especially, there's always this drive to better yourself. You can always rise above. What do you not know? What do you need to learn? Because there's always somebody who knows something more than you do, and you should learn from that. And that was just kind of ingrained. My grandfather was always learning and doing and investing, and he was like the kid who has fingers on all these different pies, right? And I think that translated to my parents, who both have this entrepreneurial spirit. I get this question a lot, like, did you join the military because of your grandfather? Because no, not really. The military wasn't a big deal. Like, my grandfather was a colonel, and I was like, so, what does that mean? I'm a kid. And it really wasn't that big a deal. But like, the personal challenge, what I've found is that there are two types of people in the world. There are people who thrive off of competition against other people, and people who thrive against competition with themselves. And I am that person. For example, in high school, my 10th grade year, they had different types of bands, the honor bands that you could do. And they've changed it now. But back when I went through, you could be an all-state band in 10th grade. Now it's different. So the deal was, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a 10th grader competing against seniors. There's no way. And I love to play. And I went in, and it wasn't a competition for the audition. It wasn't a competition against anybody else. I was just like, let me share this with you. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to play this piece for you. I was just like super excited. And I made third out of, I don't know how many people, as a sophomore. I mean, I beat seniors. Like, we totally freaked out, right? So my next grade was 10th grade or 11th grade. And I got a boyfriend, and I wasn't really paying attention. I just had some for granted, and they only take the first 5 people for All-State, and I made 6th. I thought, oh, okay, that's not okay. So I learned a little bit more about, like, okay, so you can't rest on your laurels. They don't know you in these blind auditions. You need to work your tail off and do what you can do and really show these people, right? So then, like, my senior year, there was always these 3 of us. And one of them I went to school with, and one of them I didn't. And we just competed at everything. But they weren't really my nemesis or anything. It was more, okay, I would really love to beat you. I know you would love to beat me. It was just like this friendly competition back and forth. And I thought, okay, cool. I was 3rd. I'll be 1st my senior year. And I made 3rd again. So it didn't work. But I wasn't upset. It was great. So, I mean, I've always thrived on that, being able to compete against myself, and I really want to see, what can I do better? Like, when I go on a bike ride, I want to go a little farther or a little faster or a little higher in elevation, or, that kind of thing. But it doesn't have to be a huge thing. And I'm not competing against anybody else. I don't care what you do. You do you.
The thing that I find very interesting is that you're not self-defeatist. I mean, if you do not achieve a certain level or goal, I assume you don't get upset at yourself. You just say, cool. That type of acceptance is rare in individuals. I'm very competitive with myself and with others, both, I think. But I don't do well in terms of self-healing. I don't do well if I don't get something done or achieve it on a level that I would like to have gotten it done, which is not often. But when it happens, I go through a 5-minute grieving period. It doesn't last long at all, because I just trip hammer to something else. But you seem to just accept it. You seem to be very cool that way. That's just, I'm very happy you have that ability, Not everyone does.
It's part of the learning process. Because if you can't look back and learn, you can't go forward.
Well, there is the oracle at Delphi, and it's written right there in the ancient 500-year-old building BC, know thyself. Shakespeare borrowed that so many times in his tragedies. That's what this is all about, these web television documentaries, is knowing Angela in this case and connecting these themes. So here we are, you've graduated, and there's all these tendencies. What were the choices you made that shaped who you are today? After college, there's that ubiquitous moment when you look in that mirror and go, what now? Now you're a planner. Clearly you're a planner, which is another accreditation to you. You're planning now. What did you plan?
I got married. My plan to be a wife. I wanted a break, and that was all. And I was like, I'll figure it out after a year. So literally when I got married 10 days after graduation, or 7 or whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna plan this wedding, and then cool, I'm gonna let him deal with it. I'm gonna be a wife and just chill out and not have like crazy responsibilities for a little while. And I'll see what happens. And I'm just gonna take a break. That lasted for a couple of months. I was so bored. I can't, it did not work out well. So I got 2 jobs because one was not enough. And I was working out at like 4 in the morning. I'd go to the Navy base. We were living in Panama City, Florida, and I went to the Navy base and I had to work out. And then I went out to the beach and worked. And none of these were like, I tried to get music teaching jobs and they just didn't, the culture there was just not conducive to private lessons. So I auditioned for Sinfonia Gulf Coast, which is the symphony in Destin that I still play with. And I got that position. I'm now assistant principal and piccoloist of that organization. And so I started playing with them. And I started playing with the Panama City Pops that are now called something else. And so I had that, but I was also going, well, what now, right? And there was always the what now. But that first year was more like, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw myself into fitness, because I had gotten into crazy good shape for my wedding. I was like, I will meet this goal. And by my wedding day, I met my goal weight. I did the things. I was super excited. I had never felt more like a princess in my life. It was awesome. And so, I looked at the pictures like, I am a model. I look amazing. And there was no shame about it, because it's like I had worked my tail off. And okay, I'm going to take a break from music. I have thrown myself into this, and I was burned out. I was really burned out. So I wonder if personal training is like teaching private flute lessons. Let me look. And I'm a natural teacher. I've been teaching forever. If I think about it, I'm a really good teacher. So I wonder if I'm good at training. And it just, again, like a duck to water.
So my name is Angela McCuiston, and I own the business called Music Strong. One day, I got injured. I had tendonitis in my wrist. I was in the gym and I had no idea what was going on, and I ended up pulling a muscle in my back. And in the musician world, we don't like to talk about injury, because that means your job could be in danger. So we're I don't want to talk about this. I don't want anybody to know that I'm in pain. And I thought, this is ridiculous. There's got to be another answer.
I didn't have a plan right off. It was like, I'll figure this out, but I'm going to give myself time to figure it out, because I don't know. All I could think is, I'm going to do the next right step. And as soon as I figure out what that next right step is, I'll do that. And then I'll do this. And I took a lot of auditions up in like DC, and none of them ever panned out. They never felt right. Mm-hmm. So it's funny. I've won every audition I've ever done in person, and I've lost every audition I've ever done blind.
You said something, these things strike out and they're going to become chapters throughout this web documentary. It never felt right. Now, I want people who are watching here to just take this in, especially if you're young. How important is it for it to feel right? When you make dramatic changes in your life, when you're taking something that you love to do, even if you don't think it's even analogous to music, in this case, physical fitness, and all of a sudden you accept the fact, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do training and play the flute. So are you conscious of now your future where you may combine the both? Or are you just unconsciously saying, I'll do training because I can get paid for it, because the flute stuff is not paying as much, not as many jobs in this particular geography. But are you looking long distance? Are you saying, I'm going to unify these branding elements of my personality together at some point?
In the beginning, that was not there. It was more of an exploratory endeavor. What does this look like? What is a personal trainer? I don't know. I'd had a couple and they were, So I'm like, well, could I be good at this? I'm interested. I've always had this love of anatomy. I took anatomy class in high school and loved it. Like, I super nerded out all the names, the Latin names of all the muscles and all the things and what they did and kinesiology and stuff. But I couldn't figure out, I didn't want to be a doctor. I couldn't figure out where that love of anatomy, I almost became a massage therapist. I didn't tell you this. So right, my senior year of high school, I was looking at Tennessee Tech. I was looking at Belmont, all those 2 for music. And then I was looking at the National School of Massage. So I thought I might want to be a massage therapist. And then I went, no, I don't want to do this. So this is where things all started to kind of come together, but it wasn't like I felt this huge pressure of, I got to figure this out right now. It was more of, well, how does this work together? And how does this work together? And I like this. And I didn't feel like I was selling out to do fitness because I was still playing. And that was just number one. I just was exploring something else. And then while I was learning about that, there was this light bulb that went off in my head because I'm learning about muscle imbalances. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been injured so many times and every doctor would just tell me to quit playing. But this third time I was injured, and this is fast forward maybe 5-6 years, that he said, the reason you have this injury, and it was from cramming from a piccolo audition for the President's Own. Piccolo, which is tiny, right? I couldn't move. I couldn't put my arm down. I couldn't breathe. This muscle in my back was just spasming nonstop. And I couldn't get comfortable. Everything hurt so bad. I went from 0 hours a day to 2 to 3 to 4 hours a day because I didn't know the piccolo orchestral rep. And I knew I was a good piccolo player, but I didn't know the rep. And I went, well, I can't pass up this opportunity. So I go see this doctor, and what he said put into motion my entire career. He said, what's going on is you have a muscle imbalance. Right here, you have a knot that's from this muscle being your pectoral muscle, the pec major basically being so tight, it's pulling these muscles forward and they're spazzing because they're so weak. But this muscle is so tight. So it's so bad. What I would do normally, because you've got basically a knot in this muscle, is I'd put a cortisone shot in the middle of that muscle. But that's right over your heart and that would probably kill you. So you don't want that. I said, okay, plan B is, he goes, well, you should probably just stop playing, find a new career. And I went, okay, you're fired. But before you're fired, I've got an audition next week. So your plan C is, I just could not believe this is all he said, is just quit. I'm like, really? If it hurts, don't do it. I mean, come on now. He goes, well, I'll give you this cream and you can put this on and fine. I was like, okay, fine. So that kind of set things in motion as I'm studying fitness, this whole thing about muscle imbalances. And I started studying more and found out the numbers are just astronomical about musicians. Like over 90% of musicians are injured as a direct result of playing an instrument.
What are the common injuries that a flutist faces?
Well, you hear carpal tunnel a lot, but it's not usually carpal tunnel actually. It's usually tight forearm muscles that present like carpal tunnel. Tendonitis is pretty common, rotator cuff issues, a lot of pain back here in the rhomboid, which is basically just another symptom of the chest being pulled forward. So a lot of pain in the shoulders, shoulder blade, neck issues, wrist issues a lot. Sometimes thumb stuff, but not as much. Those are the most common ones.
You're a corrective exercise specialist now. And is that a term you invented, or is this an idiom that's an appellation that is frequently used in that industry? But
that's actually a specialization I had to purchase after my certified personal training course. So it's a specialization I had to purchase and go through. And it's the hardest thing I've done next to my master's comps. It was really hard. You had to learn all the muscles of the body. And I do mean all. You had to know their names, where they started, where they ended, what they did, and what they inhibited. So for example, say your chest pulls you forward, your rhomboids back here pull you back. You have to know how they work synergistically and antagonistically. It was amazing. And it made so much sense for musicians. Like, oh my gosh, why are we not talking about this? Why is nobody talking about strength training for musicians? We talk about yoga, we talk about stretching, we talk about relaxing, we talk about resting. Where's the strength? It's just go to PT and then rest. The PT and rest are not the same, and strength training is not even in the thing. So no, it's not. It's an actual specialization through the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Interesting. You know, I had the absolute privilege of being a guest of honor at this a big corporate networking event, and the man next to me was also a guest of honor, and he was this very dark-skinned Indian-looking man. And he was there because he had discovered transcendental meditation yoga in Tibet. And he's now bringing that into Southern California, where he developed a practice in Tustin. And we just kind of fell in love with each other. He's 82, and he gave me a free 2-hour yoga class, one-on-one. And I will never forget it. But he started, to your point, by telling me, we only did standing formations, but he would say, okay, this particular formation does this to the body. So first he said how good it is and what it does for the body, and then we committed to the exercise. And I think that's very, very, very important to understand. It motivates you, right?
It does. Yes, absolutely.
Now you're also a cancer exercise specialist, and please tell us what that is.
Sure, that's another certification that I did. Somebody came through town the other day, it was several years ago, and she mentioned this. And so what it is, I thought I should probably branch out, because I know a couple of different musicians who have had cancer. And even though I don't just train musicians, I train a lot of people. And cancer is one of those special populations that people don't think about going to the gym if you have cancer. It's one of the best things you can do. And it's not just from a strength standpoint, it's from a positive mood standpoint, which I know sounds a little floofy, but I mean, seriously, there's something very empowering about lifting something heavy and doing it well. And that bolsters your mood, which sets you on a better positive path towards healing. But at the same time, there's all these things that as a cancer exercise specialist, you have to understand. Like, for example, when I was going through this course, I was training this guy who had multiple myeloma. And multiple myeloma is a type of cancer that's classified as basically having glass bones. You want to talk about scary. And I didn't know this. And so I started training him, and then I went through this thing and I was like, oh, we need to do this. We need to, there's all these different things you have to consider, like different ways to modify the exercises. Number one, so they feel good that they can actually do the exercise and they're taking part of their lives back from this horrible disease, but two, that they're doing it safely. And so there's this whole different thing that you have to think about, but that it's wonderful on both fronts. And I love being able to give people, like, this disease takes your life from you, sometimes literally, and being able to take part of that back is just so good, like giving people their lives back. It's wonderful.
Yeah, you're such an extraordinarily positive person. It's marvelous to see and witness. And you've taken this experience, and we've kind of gone over ahead of ourselves a few chapters here in terms of the training and all the due diligence required for achieving these types of certifications. But you've also published a book, and we're going to fly in the cover of that book and show you where you can get this book. But tell us about being an author, and just some people have a great deal of fear in even trying to write a book and get it out of their system. But you've done that. Tell us the process.
Yeah, so I've thought about doing this for a while, and then one day I went, well, just put it on paper. I've been journaling forever, and like it can't be that much different. And this was maybe a year before COVID hit. So I had published it before the pandemic, but then republished it last year during the pandemic, self-published. And so the whole experience was like, I want to be able to give something to musicians that's just like, I thought about this forever and ever, like, I've always wanted to write a book. And it's not a fiction book. I want to be able to give some of my knowledge to people in a simple way that they can implement at home or on the tour or in the hotel or backstage or wherever you are. And this can change your life, especially if you don't know anything. And I thought, okay, what are the basics? What are the things I tell people literally all day, every day that you wouldn't know? What are the things that I didn't know that I wish I had known that would have led to my not getting my second injury? So that's how, and literally I sat down, I think I wrote half the book in one day. So, and it wasn't like I meant to, I just couldn't stop. But once I got on a roll, I just let the words flow. And as soon as I had the idea, some people say, you got to write an outline, you got to be formal, whatever. No, I just wrote. I'm like, I'll just write it and I will figure out the where it goes later. But that's kind of how I do. I mean, I don't tend to do a lot of drafts. I write all my workout plans in pen. There's something very solid about seeing that. And I don't do a lot of drafts. I never did. So that's where the book came from. And I used one of my current, she's current then, clients who is a violinist, asked her to be my model, and a friend was is an excellent photographer. And so we just took all these pictures in my gym and went, these are the basics. They're the stuff that she was doing, the stuff I talk about every day. And then I just broke it down. And I didn't find it was hard because maybe this is naive of me, but I've always been a little bit of a naive person, because I just thought, if somebody buys it, great. I mean, if they don't, whatever, I wrote a book. you know, I didn't think anything about it.
A wonderful trait of yours. Because
What
a
do
lot
you
of
have to
people, a lot
lose
of
by
people
writing a
publish a book and they have expectations, sell, income, cash flow. And you just said, if anything, I would have written a book. It's very refreshing to be that way, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm also not
perhaps
in the
healthy.
illusion. Yes. But they say you're not going to get rich writing a book, and you're not, you know, and I realize, like, I'm selling my book for like $20 for the ebook, and I realize it's a little high. Would I pay it? I don't know. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, I know what I poured into this and how long it took to revise and redo and do the pictures. And it wasn't the writing of the book that was hard. It was stopping, because I wanted to keep going and adding more and more and more and more and more. And we did the photo shoot in one day, and I had one day. So I had to stop. That was the hard part.
But there could be subsequent books. There probably will be. You know, it doesn't end in one book.
Oh, no.
Your life story certainly isn't over yet, young lady. But let's talk about that 2007 NFA Piccolo competition you won.
So that is actually a masterclass competition. So when I say I won it, I was one of 3 winners, I think. Okay. And I won it and didn't realize I won it, kind of thing. I submitted the audition. The audition recording was my senior year. Yeah, it was right before I graduated. So I played the audition. I had to submit the recording, and I've sent it out. And what happened actually was that I didn't think I didn't hear anything. And suddenly I got a call saying, hey, you got this. Can you go? You got to be in New Mexico in 2 months. I went, sure, I'll figure it out. What are you going to play? I hadn't thought that far. So
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. So what I did was I was like, I'll play. And I played what was on the audition. I was like, I'll just play that. Well, what I played was the Mike Mauer Piccolo Sonata. Well, one of my proudest moments. I flew out there, and I really didn't know what this masterclass was. I was being taught by Walfrid Kujala, which is one of like just the piccolo giants of the world. And I should have picked something, but I just wasn't. I was like, I'm just going to do this thing. And that's kind of how I live my life. Like, I take every single opportunity. If I think it's going to benefit somebody in some way or is a fun thing to do, I just jump on it. If it doesn't pan out, fine. I got all these other things I'm doing. This is another thing that didn't work out. Whatever. And so I did this thing, and I didn't have what I was going to play for this masterclass. So I kind of blew a really good opportunity, because Kujala was like, that sounds pretty good. And like, I didn't go all the way to New Mexico for you to tell me that sounds good. Come on. Yeah.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. You became a special consultant for the Old Guard Army Fife and Drum Corps. Tell us about that.
Okay, so that's kind of a funny story. Several of my friends that I went to graduate school with actually became members of the Old Guard, and they won those auditions. And so I started talking to one of them about what the things they are that they deal with in the Old Guard. And she said, oh my gosh, the bass drum players, They have horrible low back pain and everybody has to stand. Like, one of the things you have to do, and as a member of the old guard, is that you have to pass a 30-minute standing still test. You can't move for 30 minutes. You have to stand totally still. Otherwise, you don't get the job. That sounds not too bad until you try to do it. I can tell you this, doing changes of command, that your back hurts. Everything hurts, right? The body's made to move. It's not meant to stand still. And that's a whole nother conversation about, the military and the uniforms. Oh my gosh, the uniforms are not made for musicians to move. That's another conversation. Happy to talk about that. But I started talking to my friend who's in the old guard and what they deal with as musicians and how many of them are injured. And she's like, oh, we all deal with X, Y, and Z. Like, really? How are you dealing with that? And she goes, well, we aren't. We're just dealing with it, quote unquote. Well, that's not healthy. She goes, well, I know. Well, the problem is she was trying to work with her higher command, and she was telling them what I was doing, and I was all set to like go to DC and help them do stuff. And then suddenly I get a call and says, hi, I'm a physical therapist and I work with the old guard. Let's talk. And I never got to go because she, quote, took over. So it didn't work out. But I was in talks to do that. So I don't know how it worked out, unfortunately. I was really kind of ticked about it.
What are you doing now?
So mostly what I'm doing right now is I am doing personal training here in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's what personal trainers do. Personal trainers make you do things that you know you need to do, and you wouldn't do them on your own. We started out with her just learning how to move.
She's, modifying everything for me specifically.
Belly button tight, just like a board.
And I've lost over 25 pounds. The best thank you, the best thing will be when I get pregnant. I know she's already like, oh, I'm gonna have to look up what I need to do to train a pregnant person. So it'll make her learn something new.
I'm one-on-one. I do online coaching. I'm doing online workshops. I'm doing a monthly Musicians Essential Exercises workout webinar, 45 minutes once a month. It's basically going over all the things in my book. I've done a whole series of instrument-specific workouts that you can download. And so I'm just kind of building on that. Instead of doing I thought I was going to build on the book and do different volumes. And I went, why not do videos? And then we got hit with the pandemic and all we wanted were videos. That's what I did. So that's how it worked out. So right now what I'm doing is I'm performing an awful lot with the Army Band. I've got another performance this week. And I'm doing that, and I'm playing with Sinfonio Gulf Coast, and I'm training people, and I teach adjunct at Trevecca University, so I've got a couple students there too. I quit teaching middle school and high school in March of last year. March of 2020, I quit. And went to college instead.
So here we have Angela. Now, this is an interesting kind of a summary, but these childhood themes, they have persevered. She conditions them. She improves upon them all the time. She integrates them. She has branded herself. And tell me now, when did it click? When did you say, oh, I need to attach training with the flute and help flutists and market myself? When did that kick in?
I want to say the day that doctor told me he could either kill me or I could quit. I mean, I thought, that's pathetic. Would you tell a soccer player because they pulled a hamstring, you could shoot them or they could quit? No, you wouldn't fire musicians any different.
How about an athlete who's getting paid $350 million for a 7-year contract?
Right. And we are highly specialized, highly trained athletes. And we're not just athletes of the small muscles. Most of my injuries have not been small, quote, small muscle injuries. My first one was tendonitis, and it was. But that whole, it wasn't like a day that it clicked. I would say that would probably be it. But when he said muscle compensation, I went home and thought. And then I was already studying for this thing, and they kept talking about compensations. And the light bulb went on, and I thought, oh my gosh, nobody's talked to me about this. Nobody's ever said anything about strength training in the musician world. Why not? If anything, they've said, don't do it. You could hurt yourself. You can hurt yourself doing anything. Absolutely. I mean, that's just a dumb reason. It's just ignorance is all it is. Musicians are not taught about strength. We're taught, oh, yoga is good. Running is good. Stretching is good. Feldenkrais and Alexander technique, and that's about it, which are all, they're great, but that's not the end all be all. Let's not just ignore some stuff because we don't know. And so I was like, you know what? I'm a hypermobile person. When I don't strength train, I get more injuries. I hurt more. Strength is the thing my body craves. And when I don't have it, I hurt more. Why are we not talking about that? And it's not just me. There's a lot of people in that situation.
How can people reach you?
Really easily. So you can find me on the web, anything Music Strong. Usually musicstrong.com is my website. You can find me on Instagram at Music Strong Fitness. All the socials are basically Twitter is Flute Angel with a J, but I don't really tweet much. So I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there under my name, Angela McCuiston. And but most everything is under musicstrong.com. It's on my website.
Yeah. Also, we're going to be very happy to have Angela, if she agrees to be kind of an adjunct, the only adjunct member of the Academy to teach well-being and fitness. There are so many degrees to fitness. I mean, we haven't talked about mental because your focus is strength, but there's a lot of mental attribution to being organized, time management skills. These are skills that musicians naturally learn. How beneficial has your music degree been to become an entrepreneur and to just live consciously in the ability to adapt, to take these seemingly not too distant themes and bring them together into an empowering cohesiveness that brings clarity, consciousness, a high level of adequate self-esteem? How do you value your music degree looking at yourself today as a person?
I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without it, not in the level that I'm doing, but that has to do more with, I think, the reason why I got my master's degree. My bachelor's was basics. I just wanted to learn what I didn't know, and I just wanted to get better at the flute. But my master's was not about winning a job. My master's was, I know I am not at my full potential and I don't know how to get there. And I don't want to stop until I've reached my full potential. And I've maybe not full potential, but as close to it as I can get. And I just know I'm nowhere close to where I could be. And that was the entire point of my master's. So it helped me become the performer that I could be on an elite level. And that's hugely important for understanding the musicians that I coach and that I train, because I understand the demands of their job, how many hours a day they're practicing, they're playing, they're touring, they're in concert, they're in rehearsal. I understand the demands of the job, and I couldn't have done that without my master's degree. But at the same time, my master's and my bachelor's didn't teach me anything about being an entrepreneur whatsoever. Nothing. My master's degree taught me, I had one class and I taught the class on taxes, which I thought was weird. And basically that class was make sure you have a website and get some business cards. You're probably going to be teaching lessons the rest of your life. I thought this is not setting me up for success. So I started then going, I just knew I was going to be an entrepreneur the rest of my life. And my music degree did not prepare me for being in business. From a business sense. From time management, it definitely did, because as a graduate student, you're just inundated with all these things, and you've got to keep yourself to that schedule, and you've got to learn how to schedule things and how to be present for people and how to stay on top of things. And also you have to learn how to not overextend yourself and when to say no. And I know that's kind of a big thing of learning not to say no, and like what your teachers tell you, all these things. But it's really important to be able to take care of yourself. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take any care of anybody else. I know it's cliche, but it's extremely true, because nobody wins. If you've beaten yourself into the ground, who's going to learn from you? What do you want them to learn? To beat yourself into the ground? That doesn't help. So master's degree really helped me with the whole time management, helped me with organization, helped me learn how to outreach and how to be, learn how to just talk to people in positions that are, quote, higher than me, that I might be a little more fearful of talking to, or a little reticent. And so it really helped me in that way. But for business wise, like strictly business, I didn't really learn much of anything. I've been learning it since then on my own.
What advice do you have for other flutists?
Love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, then stop and find something you do love to do. And you can also understand that you're not selling out if you find more than one thing to do. If you have a degree in performance and you do something else, or you marry it with something else, you are not selling out. There are so many ways you can put your performance degree to use that you're not less of a musician if you don't play in an orchestra, or you don't perform full time, or you don't teach in the higher level. That doesn't make you any less of a performance of a musician. It doesn't. That's my one piece of advice. Please don't buy into that, because that was like pounded into us. These are your two jobs. If you don't get either one of those jobs, you're a failure. No, you're not. There's so many other options. And if I didn't have that degree, I couldn't do what I do. There's no way. And so that degree is not the end all be all. It's a stepping stone to make you who you want to be. Run with that.
Yeah. And I think everyone listening who has known me for many years can know why I embrace this woman, because that is exactly what I feel and have felt. A little older than Angela, but there's no doubt I had a self-esteem crash when I invested a lot of my own money into a project that could have given me the one-line resume on the level of Leonard Bernstein. And I've told this story before, but simply put, after the Japanese financial crisis, it didn't happen. This was a Vatican Commission giant 2-hour spectacle for PBS with Andrea Bocelli and Annie Lennox. And I crashed, moved back into an apartment, and I needed a job for the first time in my life outside of music, since I was a 9-year-old peddling in New York City, playing at jazz clubs as a 9-year-old. I looked in the paper and saw an advertisement for Manufacturers Bank in the telemarketing division, and I entered the world of commercial banking. And that, when I go back in time, and I realized that's how the 2D Academy was founded, literally to teach musicians how to parlay and revalue their music degree into the world of business and industry. And Angela kind of met me through that, I think, through giving another talk she intercepted. And together we're here only weeks later talking about her life story, which is really quite identical to mine, in the sense that her awareness and consciousness says, it's okay out there. If you have to do something else, if COVID has hit you and you're in the audience and demographics of, you're 25, 35 years old, and you are forced by biological stages forthcoming, marriage, children, if applicable, to see the future and recognize the future and want a sustainable life to pay your fixed and variable costs, navigating the world, it's okay to take those skill sets and revalue it. It may not be okay to go back and get a business and finance degree and spend all that money, go back to college. That can be really daunting, but you don't have to. There are choices. They can be self-willed, self-educated. You can come to the academy, check out me and Angela and a marvelous adjunct faculty to hold your hand and teach you how to do these things, but we'll get you there. And it's this positivism about them being proud of being a musician that is really the hallmark of our hearts and our agenda. So I really I can't thank you enough for this time. We're going to continue these video blogs with Angela and forthcoming talks specifically to training, physical training, right?
Absolutely.
That'd be fantastic. So Angela, again, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah.